Hi, my name is Sam Davis.
And I'm Larry Peirce.
We are with the Texas Asphalt Pavement Association. So TXAPA is a member-run association supporting the asphalt industry for the state of Texas. We are a member-led organization, so our pavers and producers are members, our associate members are suppliers, engineering firms, consultants, basically everybody that supports the industry. And we work with our public partners, the cities, counties, TxDOT, and just about everybody in between to grow the industry and support the industry through education and best practices to get the highest quality, longest lasting asphalt pavements possible.
The reason we're here today is we are kicking off our first Road Maps podcast. So we'd like to welcome everybody to the very first one that we're doing together. Our goal is to share knowledge, industry insights, and best practices for everything to do with asphalt pavements for local agencies. Not just the local agencies, but all their partners that design, build, test, and maintain asphalt roadways throughout the state of Texas. So during this series of episodes, what we want to do is, over time, is explain concepts, terms, and easy to understand kind of bite-sized pieces while covering a variety of topics and addressing issues that many cities and counties have across the state of Texas when it comes to maintaining and taking care of the roadways.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. Speaking of topics, we're going to go address topics kind of cradle to grave for asphalt pavements. We're going to be talking about the raw materials. We're going to be talking about pavement designs. We're going to be talking about asphalt designs, production, construction, maintenance, kind of everything in between.
Inspection and testing, of course, a big one for cities and counties, make sure that they're getting what it is they're supposed to be getting.
You bet. Well, Larry, a little bit about me. So I've been a paver and a producer in North Texas in the DFW area for the last 25 years. And unfortunately, I've learned a lot of lessons by doing things the wrong way. I like telling my daughter at home that the best way to learn something is to do it wrong, so that we learn how to do it right. If we do it right from the get-go, sometimes we don't really know the whys or the hows or how to improve and how to get better. So I do think that messing up and doing things wrong is a good learning opportunity. Unfortunately, sometimes when we get things wrong, it can have some pretty big consequences. So one of my goals is let's share information. Let's share kind of those life lessons that I've learned the hard way along the way, and maybe we can teach the listeners how to not make the same mistakes that I've done.
Yeah, well, that would be a great, if we can accomplish, between you and I, if we can accomplish not making the mistakes that we've done, I think we'll have done pretty good. You know, one of the things about the asphalt industry that I found here in Texas is that, whether it's contractors, whether it's a city or county staff and personnel, whether it's the engineering firms that are either designing or inspecting these roadways, everybody really wants to do a good job. And sometimes, we don't know what we don't know. And so we're going to try to shed some light on, what are the best things to do in the different aspects, through that kind of life cycle of building and maintaining a pavement. So that's what we want to do. And, Sam didn't mention, I think it's, one thing is great is that Sam has spent so much time as a producer and placer of asphalt, because that's going to be really key. I noticed he didn't mention that he's from far north Texas, a little town called Canada. And so Canada's loss is Texas gain. So we're really glad to have Sam around. So my background is I kind of started out in the pavement world with the Strategic Highway Research Program. It was a federal program that collected data on hundreds and hundreds, not probably close to 1,000 test sections around around North America, really, trying to figure out what all the different components in the pavement system do and how they behave, and try to come up with the best way to design and construct pavements. I spent a lot of time after that in the construction materials geotechnical world, and have spent about 10 years total in the association world here in Texas, representing the construction industry, really the roadway and pavement construction industry. So between the two of us, I think we might have kind of a lot of the bases covered.
I think so, Larry. Between your testing experience and engineering background and the paving and production that I've had, and the construction materials producing, and then as you said, the inspection, the testing, the maintenance, I think we've, between the two of us, we've pretty much got the whole thing covered.
Yeah, we'll kind of look forward to that then. So
you bet. Well, to kick us off, safety is really important, and safety has to be at the forefront of everything we do as an industry. At the end of the day, if our people don't go home safe, then then what are we really doing? So thankfully, everybody in our industry kind of recognizes the importance of safety, and one of the things we're going to do throughout the podcast is kick us off with a safety share and have a safety topic that we talk about.
I think it's a good idea.
Today I want to talk about effective toolbox talks, and I think just about everybody has toolbox talks, and these are the job site meetings pre-shift, kind of talk about safety topics. I've seen some really effective ones, some good ones, and I've also seen some ineffective ones. And I think what I'd like to share today is how to make or how to have effective toolbox talks. Employee engagement and engagement from everybody on the crew is vital. Giving your lead man a piece of paper and having him read a toolbox talk or a safety topic to the rest of the crew, having them sign it at the end of the day, I see that all over the place, and unfortunately it just doesn't drive that engagement. Well, some of the better toolbox talks that I've been involved with, come from, let's talk about the tasks that we're going to do today. Let's talk about the hazards and going around to everybody on the crew, letting everybody identify a hazard, and then talk about the steps that we're going to do to keep our employees safe and protect them from those hazards. Everything from PPE required to flaggers and spotters to equipment safety and burns. We are the asphalt industry, so we're dealing with hot liquids, and if we can have those conversations and get everybody involved at the start of the shift, then that's truly what awareness is. Probably 2/3 of the way to prevention of accidents in the workplace.
Yeah, well, I think that's good, and the fact that we're going to lead off every one of our podcasts with a safety share is a good habit, and I think that that's part of it is habits, right? And, I had always heard that good habits take practice and bad habits come real easy. So let's go ahead and we'll practice on our good habits. How about
There you
that?
go. There you go.
You might ask, well, why are we focusing a podcast on local agencies? When we say local agencies, that's cities, that's counties. It's a lot of the private development. We have a lot of people moving to Texas. It's almost 1,400 a day now, goes up every year. And so a lot of the work is done in the construction of the roadways that are going to be subdivisions, and that kind of starts out a lot of times in private development, but it always ends up being eventually the maintenance responsibility of a city or a county. And so it's really important that we focus on that. So much time is spent on TxDOT highways. That's really important. TxDOT specifications and the way things are done are kind of the fountainhead of where it all begins in terms of design and construction, and a lot of cities and counties will utilize that. But it's really important to keep in mind, Sam, that for a city and a lot of times counties, the biggest asset that they own is their street network. And the biggest maintenance expense that a city or a county has oftentimes is taking care of that roadway and street network. And so, we felt like it's really important that we spend time and kind of work aimed directly at the local agencies in the state. Probably 70% of the lane miles in the state of Texas are actual local roads, not TXDOT, which I think a lot of people...
I had no idea. Yeah, I did not know that.
We always think about TXDOT and the highway system, vitally important, of course, but at the same time, these local streets and local roadways are equally as important. 90% of all the roads in the country, and Texas is no different, are either asphalt or asphalt surface roadways. And so, they need to have a lot of attention. And what we see where TXDOT has pretty strict specifications and design procedures, we do see that when we talk about local agencies, there's really a huge variability in the specifications across the state. Not trying to pick on local agencies, but it is a fact that a lot of the specifications are outdated. A lot of the references back to specifications are they're pointing out things like the type of binder that is used in the asphalt, for instance, not even in existence anymore, but that's really what the spec book is. And so what we're hoping to do is try to get folks more up to speed on the latest technology, the latest specifications to help with consistency from the design, construction, testing, and long-term maintenance of asphalt pavements. I mean, that's kind of, in a nutshell, I guess, what our goal is.
That's a great segue into our next thing, Larry. We want to highlight projects from across the state that our public local agencies have built, and we want to highlight those and share those success stories with everybody. So we're going to kick off, we're calling Roadmaps Project of the Month. And we need help from all of our listeners. We want you to call in, send us emails. We're going to, at the end of the episode, we'll put up an email address for everybody to send nominations to. But we want cities, counties, local agencies to send us their projects that they're proud of. It could be any size, it can be any type, but we want to hear about the success stories from around the state, and we want to share that with everybody. So this is our call to action to the listeners to nominate your projects, and hopefully by sending them in, you'll get selected, and then in an upcoming episode, we'll highlight your project. Well, Larry, I think we have a nomination and a winner for our Roadmap Project of the Month. You want to tell us about?
Our first one is going to be the city of Corpus Christi, one of their projects. So the city of Corpus has implemented what they're calling their rapid repair program. They are doing in-house overlays on a lot of streets. They've done 100 miles in the last couple of years, which is significant if you think about that for in-house forces. They're really dedicated to quality, and so we've got one of their projects that will be our very first Roadmaps Project of the Month.
That's great. Well, congratulations, Corpus Christi, and keep sending those nominations in, because we do want to talk about all the projects from across the state.
Yep.
Well, Larry, let's jump right into it. So tell me about the TXAPA conference. So what is TXAPA? Who goes to the TXAPA conference?
Well, TXAPA, as you mentioned earlier, it's the Texas Association of County Engineers and Roadway Administrators. And so there's 254 counties in Texas, got a lot of them. And most counties will have a county engineer. But a lot of counties, a lot of the more rural ones, they'll have a roadway administrator, and that can either be one of the elected county commissioners takes that role on, or some counties will actually assign a roadway administrator. But either way, that's why it's called TXAPA, not just county engineers here in Texas. And so TXAPA is a great organization. They do a tremendous amount of outreach and education, training, those types of things for the counties in the state. And they have one of the really good things they have is every year they've got a big annual conference, and it's always in October. And the conference is attended by usually over 300 people that come to the statewide conference once a year. It's 3 days long. It's got maybe 2.5 days of technical sessions, presentations. And so we were lucky enough this year to be on the program talking about this 341M specification. And we're also an exhibitor at it. They have a pretty good exhibit hall where a lot of folks come and exhibit things that are useful to the counties for their roadways. And so, it's a really good conference.
Nate, well, tell me about your presentation of the 341M specification. So what is 341M?
So 341M, and by the way, we did this presentation together. So it was, I think it went really well. So the 341M specification, where that all came from, TXDOT has pretty good tight specifications for their different types of asphalt pavements. And TXDOT's 341 mix is kind of like a bread and butter type, a very common mix. It's a dense graded asphalt mixture. Later podcast, we'll get into all of that, the differences between dense graded, open graded, all that, where you use them. But the 341 specification by TXDOT is what a lot of cities and counties use on much of their roadway or street network. But there are some differences. So we developed this 341M specification, M meaning municipal, but counties and municipalities, and every municipality sits in a county somewhere. So they're kind of all part and parcel and can be used interchangeably. But there are some differences in that specification. What we find is that counties and local agencies will have a very high level of variability in their specifications from one town, one city to the next, one county to the next. A lot of them don't update their specifications on a very frequent basis, and we will see a city or a county specification that is very antiquated, sometimes 30 plus years old.
I was going to say, I worked in a lot of cities that reference the 94 spec book.
Yeah,
exactly. A lot of cities that reference the 2004 spec book, TXDOT spec book. So yeah, a lot of them are dealing with 20 or 30 year outdated information.
Right, and what happens there is that when progress is made and specs are updated, if you're working off of a very old specification, you're missing out on the latest technologies, on improvements that'll give you better roadways, better asphalt pavements. And so we felt that it was really necessary to help develop a specification that can be used by local agencies that isn't exactly like TXDOT. TXDOT has a different set of requirements in some things that cities and counties don't necessarily have in their specs, and some of them they ought to have in there, and some of them they're not going to have in there. For instance, a lot of municipalities will accept contractor results as their form of acceptance of that project. So they're basically taking the test results from the contractor, because the contractor is going to be doing all these quality control testing initiatives during the life of the project while that project's being built, and that's good. But the county then takes the contractor's test results, and that's what they say, okay, this is our acceptance document, so to speak, for that project. And so what we want to do is make it more like TXDOT's from the contractor side, and that includes things like, for a TXDOT project, all of the test results that are done, all the mix design, the construction sequencing, all the inspection testing, and all that stuff that is done throughout that project, those technicians from mix design all the way through roadway testing are required to be certified on a TXDOT job.
Now we're not talking inspectors, we're just talking about the test results and certified technicians taking tests, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so knowing that a local agency is not going to have necessarily the forces to have their own quality acceptance, the quality assurance of the quality acceptance piece of that, like TxDOT does, we want to make sure that the contractor test results are of a very, very high quality, so that if a local agency accepts that contractor result, you've got a, your assurance that you're getting, you're taking them the right way, that it's done the right way. And so that's really where the genesis of this idea of a 341M specification comes from. It's going to get you the best possible asphalt mix you can get without having every single thing on there. Another thing, it looks at a lot of cities and counties don't allow recycled asphalt products. Maybe they didn't have tight specifications on their, what we call RAP, okay, recycled asphalt products. RAP is a huge, huge amount of material, and it's got a lot of good material from previous roads that can be reincorporated at a smaller degree. Not the, not 100% of the new road was recycled asphalt products, but certain percentages can be allowed. And as long as you're being pretty tight on the quality of that RAP, then a city or a county really ought to be looking at utilizing RAP. Unfortunately, I think a lot of local agencies may have had RAP, they just allowed RAP, and maybe a contractor put too much in, or it wasn't of high quality. Well, then it failed. And so what we have seen across the state is this no RAP, because they think, well, if we don't have any RAP, then we're not going to worry about getting this bad RAP. Well, they really ought to be allowing RAP, but just making sure that they're qualifying that RAP. And so those are the types of things I think 341M were developed to help, get some good economy by allowing RAP, but also to get some good quality by requiring certified testers.
Absolutely. You bet. So tell me about what are one of the advantages to getting a lot of public agent or local agencies on board with the 341M? If what would be in their best interest if they adopted the specification?
I think that what we see is, you've got all these cities and towns that are all right adjacent to each other, and some of them in counties, and they're sitting in counties. So you've got these entities in a region that have a whole host of different specifications, and there's really not a benefit to that. If you think about it, you've got a certain finite number of contractors and producers that are making asphalt. And if every time they move into a different customer, that is a different agency, a different city, or a different county, they have to stop and say, okay, who are we working for today? What do we got to do to change our mix to meet that specification of that area or that town or that county that's different than what we did yesterday? It would be to much the benefit of everybody, both from a quality and, frankly, I think from a cost standpoint, to a contractor and to the city or county, to have a more unified or uniform specification that allows some certainty both for the people producing the mix and for the customer, which is the agency.
As you talked about production, I know all the plants are capable of running multiple mixes, and all the plants do run multiple mixes, but every time you switch mixes, you run the risk of contaminating your mix. You run the risk of sending the wrong mix to the wrong project, and that is definitely something that would lead to better quality at the asphalt plant is a consistent product. And if a plant is making one product and not having to switch between 2 or 3 or 4 different products throughout the day, that'll really drive quality at the asphalt plant. The other thing I heard you say was talking about the placement, the contractor paving. And, we always used to struggle with, I did a lot of projects in the city of Fort Worth. And whenever we would go pave in another city or in the county, my crew was so used to paving to city of Fort Worth specifications that a lot of times they weren't even paying attention to the specifications where we were paving. And And I'll be honest, sometimes we ran into trouble because of it. And, that's the risk you run when, as you say, everybody's got different requirements, everybody's got different specifications, everybody's got different test protocols, and it really is confusing for producers and pavers that are working in these or for these multiple entities. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think it's about trying to get more certainty. You're a contractor. You spent many years as a contractor, and I know dealing with contractors over a number of decades now that uncertainty equals risk, and risk equals cost.
Absolutely.
And so if you can minimize the uncertainty, you will then minimize the risk, and hopefully you'll end up getting better pricing for a better product.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a win for everybody, right? It makes the contractor's life easier knowing they've got certainty. It makes the city or county know that their mix they're putting down is going to be similar to other entities. The quality is going to be higher, and hopefully they're going to get a better product at a good price.
Absolutely.
That's really kind of the name of the game there.
One thing, Larry, you talked about recycled asphalt and RAP, and a lot of people don't understand that RAP actually brings a lot of value to the mix. It's not just a cost or a material substitution, but there are a lot of good properties that come from mixes that utilize, again, that little bit of RAP, and even 10 or 15% RAP introduced back into a product can really lead to rut resistance and some really good performance characteristics out of that mix that I think a lot of people overlook because they've had a bad experience, because their specification may be allowed for irresponsible use of recycled products.
Yep. Yeah, I think using RAP, and that is a good point. There's asphalt binder in that RAP that can be beneficial to rut resistance, keeping that mix stronger, stiffer. But I think that the key to using RAP is to look at the RAP. It is a construction material. It's part of that mix. And so let's qualify the RAP and make sure that RAP is being kind of held to the same standards as what we call virgin materials that are the non-RAP materials. So
that goes back to your certified testing and making sure we're good quality control on not only our mix, but our raw materials that are going into that mix, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And those are all things that are covered by the specification.
Yes, they are. And I think the spec is, it looks at, and we're going to be on a bit of a campaign for as long as it takes, I suppose, is to educate people on this specification, what the benefits are, and the benefits are significant. And so that's
now, Larry, tell me, you said we're on a campaign to educate our public partners about the specification. What if an entity only wants a portion of the specification? Is it a all or none type deal, or what is TXAPA's approach to working with some of these public partners?
That's a great question. I think the short answer is it's not take it or leave it. Different areas of the state, this is a massive state. We have different kinds of source materials. We know that to the extent possible, we really have to use local materials. They behave differently. They're different kinds of rock. They're, the filler and the smaller size on the aggregate band is, it can vary. And so what we've done on this specification, it is actually in a Word document. We can provide that to a city. We can give guidance for your city in this part of the state. We think, you should do these types of things, but you don't have to. You can take parts of that. You may have some things in your specification as a city or a county right now that are really good, and there are some things within this 341M that could make it better. So just take those portions of it. Yeah.
So part of the outreach then is really us working with individual entities to incorporate portions of the spec to supplement what they've currently got.
That's right.
And to bring things up to date, I guess. So we're not dealing with a 30-year-old specification anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think that if somebody wanted to adopt the specification in total, they couldn't go wrong. But if they say, well, we're going to allow these types of things, I mean, you can ask us our opinion. One of the things at TXAPA is we will give guidance. We're not going to charge you for that guidance. I mean, that's what we're about. We represent the asphalt industry. One of our biggest pillars of that representation is education and outreach. And so get with us and ask us, we'd be glad to sit down with you and give you our 2 cents on what we think you ought to do. But
I guess that's a great point too, is if a city or county wanted to reach out and ask us for help reviewing or updating their specification, that's just part of the service we offer. There's no cost to our public partners.
No, there is not. And, if we get a lot of them, we're happy to look at any city, and Sam will stay up all night and do that. He's already said that. Not today, but
maybe today.
No, but we encourage, what we would love to do is be able to get with the city, look at their asphalt specification, and have a good dialogue on, hey, what do we need to do to make this better? We may find things that are in good shape. They just need to tweak some things. So
Sure.
This specification, I think, will help allow for that.
Well, that's great. Well, Larry, we've come to the point in our podcast today where we're going to go through our monthly top 10.
Okay.
So today's topic I've got right here is the top 10 reasons why somebody should review their current specification and look at elements from the 341M specification.
Good deal.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So the number 10 reason why somebody should review their current spec is your spec currently references the 2004 spec book, which is now 20 some years out of date.
And it doesn't seem like a bit of time flies, doesn't it? Sam, the number 9 reason is you're tired of getting all the leftovers from whatever the plant was mixing.
That happens all the time, unfortunately, yeah. All right, the number 8 reason for adopting the 341 spec or reviewing your current spec is standardizing mixes across the region, as you mentioned, will lead to better availability, normalized cost, uniformity, and ultimately better quality throughout the region.
And top 10 reasons why you should adopt 341M. Number 8.
7.
Number 7. There's either nobody currently testing your asphalt pavements, or if somebody is, they likely aren't certified.
You bet. The number 6 reason is more consistent mix will lead to better construction and longer lasting pavements. So it's all about bang for the buck, and the longer those pavements will last, the better off we all are for it.
The number 5 reason to adopt 341M is improve sustainability through the responsible use of recycled materials.
The number 4 reason, top 10 reason for reviewing your spec and looking at the 341M. One thing TxDOT does is, as you said, they have just updated their specifications and they have pretty strict tolerances. And so any mix that does have a current TxDOT approved mix design is an allowable substitution. So if a plant is making a TxDOT mix, then at the contractor's option, that is an approved mix for 341M.
That's a great point, Sam. The number 3 reason is that designs are based on current super paved gyratory compaction for lab molded densities. That's a mouthful, but it's
I don't
important.
even know what that means.
Well, but that's the thing about these podcasts. We're going to get into that we're going to get into that on a future podcast. The key there is we're not going to be using obsolete or outdated
equipment.
Right, exactly.
You bet. All right, the number 2 reason to review your current specification is 341M is layer specific, meaning that the spec calls for differences in mix designs, whether you're in a base layer, an intermediate layer, or a surface layer. It differentiates between the layers and allows the producer to produce different mixes depending on where you are in that structure.
That is another great point. And the number one reason you should adopt 341M is, when was the last time you actually reviewed your specification? I bet it's about time.
It's about time, absolutely. No, thanks, Larry. That was good, useful information. Yeah. Just a reminder, everybody of our upcoming events. We do have our 4 MAPS conferences coming up: South, East, North, and West. Larry, where is our first MAPS conference coming up this year?
Our first MAPS conference is going to be in Midland, Texas. We have been working, you and I have been out there doing some education for inspectors, and we've worked with some of the engineering staff in the West Texas area. Our first one is going to be in Midland, Texas on February 11th and 12th, 2026.
All right, well, good deal. Everybody out west, we will see you there. And then stay tuned or head to our website to learn about the MAPS conferences in the other regions across the state that are all going to be happening in the spring. Again, we're going to remind everybody to go to our website. We've got a bunch of, from the safety shares that we talked about this morning to contractor resources to mix design resources, a lot of resources on our website. So if everybody can go to TexasAsphalt.org, there's some great information there.
Yep, and don't forget, send us nominations for Roadmaps Project of the Month. We really want to kind of get this thing up and running. We mentioned Corpus Christi. Bet there's a lot of other cities out there that are in counties that might be saying, Corpus, we're as good or better than them.
That's
so
right.
Prove it. Send us in some nominations for a project.
Yeah, and send those nominations to our email, roadmaps@texasasphalt.org, and that is our podcast-specific email address. So when nominations come in there, we'll be sure to take a look at them and get you on the list.
What's our next podcast about, Sam?
The next one, well, we spent so much time talking about 341M today. I think the next episode, we're going to be talking about some of the different mixes that are available to our public partners. And you mentioned the bread and butter mix and widely used in a bunch of different applications, but sometimes there are specific circumstances where we need a little bit more exotic mixes, whether it's a permeable, whether it's a thin overlay, whether it's
Heavy-duty intersection.
Heavy-duty intersections.
Where you got a lot of bus or truck traffic and slow moving and turning, that type of stuff.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a bit of a deeper dive into different mix designs and some of the applications beyond just the bread and butter 341 specification that we talked about today.
That'll be great. Well, thank you for listening to our podcast. And remember, stay flexible.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in for this month's episode of Road Maps.
If you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to like and subscribe or check out one of our previous episodes. And to keep up with all things TXAPA, be sure to follow us on our social media channels at Texas Asphalt Pavement Association.
And remember, stay flexible, and we'll see you next time.